The following is a presentation of the Eagles Sports Network.
Martin here for the newest edition of Mossy Creek Conversations. The Carson-Newman podcast tells all the stories of Carson-Newman athletics throughout history, and we are pleased to be joined today by Jeff Joslin, former Carson-Newman quarterback, and of course the director of Sparks, the Ken Sparks story, the documentary that come out this year. Jeff, thank you so much for taking out your time to go your very busy schedule to be here.
Well, Richard, I appreciate the opportunity to be here, and it's always great to come back home to where it all started.
Absolutely, and it started for you really right down the road over in Knoxville over at Farragut High School, and we were with Ken Sparks from almost the very beginning of the playing career. He was the coach of Farragut High School when you played football there for the Admirals. What was Coach Sparks? I know a lot of people know what Coach Sparks was like at Carson-Newman, but what was he like as a high school coach when you first met him?
Well, I was a sophomore, and I played for Coach Claybo. He retired, and so the first time I met Ken Sparks, we were all in the gymnasium, and he came in, and this young guy, a lot of energy, and just said, "Hey, things are going to change here." And then all of a sudden, all these workouts that we did, we were doing ballet, we were doing martial arts, and I mean, it was like a spark that happened. And then all of a sudden, when he was around guys, he wanted, to know about FCA. So he started FCA at his house. And, a lot of people go to FCA just, guys go there for, the girls are there, I'll say that I was too. But I'd never really heard about FCA that I remember, other than Ken Sparks talking about it. And then all of a sudden, he'd come around and talk to you and ask you, "How's your heart?" And I'm like, "Well, I'm fine. Medically, I'm fine," And so he was always talking about and talking in ways that it kind of reminds me of like being parables, and that there was some kind of what's going on, So then we started talking more. At that time, I was the third string quarterback. Stan Cotton was the guy, and there was another guy, Will Garland, was the second string. And so I was just this young, long-haired guy, and I didn't think I had a lot to do, with the Spark system, but I liked it. I enjoyed the working outs that he did and all that stuff. And then our first season, we ended up being, I think 10-1. Went to the Nurserymen's Bowl in Nashville, and there was a lot of things going on. All of a sudden, there was a stadium that was going to be done because we had the new school that started in 1976. So they needed a new stadium. So Coach Sparks got this booster club together. I mean, my dad and so many other players were selling stuff and raising money for this stadium. And all of a sudden, this community exploded from the energy that Ken Sparks brought to Farragut. We used to be Farragut farmers. Now, all of a sudden, we were 10-1, versus 6-5. And it could have been, in the playoffs. And then the next year, we had an all-senior team that had Bill Bates, and we had guys that were going to go, to college with scholarships and things like that. People were looking at us, and we went to University of the South in Sewanee, and Stan Cotton goes down with a knee injury. And I remember like it was yesterday, he said two words, "Coach Sparks," and was just screaming, "Coach Sparks," and his knee was blown, it was gone. All of a sudden, Jim Dyer, who was the recruiter at UT, and his son played for Coach Sparks, David Dyer, but he was at the fall practice, And he told Coach Sparks, he said, hey, why don't you put Jeff Joslin in first string and put Will Garland at wingback. So I'm a junior on an all-senior team, and I was just scared. I just, to fill those shoes that Stan Cotton was going to go to a major college, was gone. And then you got Bill Bates and Rusty Reaney and Jeff York and DiMatteo and guys like that. They were, I think, looking to make me to do all this stuff, and so we had an incredible season of going to the playoffs, got beaten double overtime, and so everything kind of changed. Off the field, he got us involved with the FCA, going to Black Mountain with at FCA summer camp. Took 15 players to Black Mountain for the FCA camp. A lot of people came to know Christ through FCA. We went to Brushy Mountain State Prison to hear Red Fuller, who was the meanest and the strongest inmate in the Tennessee prison system at that point. Friends with James Earl Ray, and this guy would go play softball at the inmates and things like that, and it would just change people's lives. I mean, it impacted my life. He was like a spiritual father for me. So, kind of a long story there, but that's kind of where everything kind of infused. Things happened. Started at Farragut, and then the next year, all these guys, I think 15 guys, ended up being with major college scholarships. Bill Bates and several of his friends went to UT, and then we went 7-3, and then Coach Sparks was going to take off, and I was being recruited with all the Southeastern Conference schools and some up north, Notre Dame and Army and Air Force and all that stuff, but I didn't know where he was going. He wouldn't tell me. And I said, look, you need to understand and figure out where God wants you to be, because I don't want to influence your life. God has to be in control, and I appreciated that, but because I knew wherever he was going to go, I would want to play. I was recruited at Carson-Newman. I didn't really thought about it. I just, had in my mind, I thought, either UT, the week before signing, Bear Bryant called and said, hey, we want to offer you a scholarship. And I said, well, I've already made a decision. And I almost went to Mississippi State because they did the wishbone, Emory Ballard. But I decided, because of the shadow of the Big Orange, I decided I'm going to stay at home, and went to Tennessee. And then Coach Sparks ended up going to Carson-Newman. So that's kind of the Farragut situation. So it was interesting to see how he really changed a community using the game of football as a platform to tell people about Christ. I grew up in the church, but man, he was a spiritual father for me. Changed my life.
Absolutely. And so, like you said, you start off at UT, you end up coming to Carson-Newman when Coach Sparks comes here, and successful right off the bat too, changes this team, and 2 back-to-back NAIA national championships. You're the quarterbacks for those teams. What do you remember from those seasons going back-to-back, and not just the games, but also just the camaraderie in the locker room, and of course what Coach Sparks brought to this town and this team?
Well, when I transferred over in January of '82, I went through a spring practice and I threw 3 interceptions. I was destroyed, by another coach at Tennessee that destroyed my confidence, and Coach Sparks had to really build me up. So I played some in 1982, I think behind Jay Andrews. I think Jay ended up hurting himself, either shoulder or something. So I played some. We went to the playoffs. I think we got beat at Hillsdale, and it just didn't go through. We just didn't get into the national championship team. So the next year we come back, and Jay's first string again. But in fall camp, he gets hurt, and I'm bumped up to first string again. And so I didn't have anything to do with that, But again, it was back to me to try to do this. And then we had Thomas Gifford and Brad Bell and a couple other guys. And so, in 1983, the first 2 games we lose. We're ranked fifth. And we thought, what's going on, And then we go through a great season and then lose the last game. I think it was against Liberty, I believe. And we don't know if we're going to go to the playoffs or not. And I remember listening to it on the radio, that if this team would lose, then we would get in the playoffs. If they would win, we would get out. But they had a chip shot field goal that if they would have won this, we would have been out. And somebody was telling me that when they kicked the field goal, the wind just kind of just blew it. And I mean, I think they said that on the radio. And I just jumped up and screamed and called a couple of friends, and we're in the playoffs. And it had never been, that I can remember, that there's never been 3 losses with a team to go to the national championship and even win it. So we knew something was going on with this team. It was something, keeping the faith, I think, was our logo, or our theme was that year, keeping the faith, and that's what it was about. During that time, Coach Sparks had gone through a divorce. So he himself had been struggling, and had to keep the faith, just like he was asking us to keep faith. And so we ended up, I think, the first couple of playoff, we struggled, and we were down, I think, we were down 21-0, and Coach Sparks, I remember in this locker room, exploded and just, got behind us, and we got behind him, and we ended up, I think, winning 24-21 to either Shepherd or Saginaw Valley, I can't remember. Then we go to the playoffs, the national championship in Mesa, and playing a team that we probably should not have won. They had never, that year, the guy had never thrown an interception the entire year. And I don't know if they were the national championship before or not. I can't remember. Getting old. Remember all that stuff. But I remember they had already printed national championship for Mesa. They thought they were just going to win this thing. And we come out there with about 300 people, and we end up winning. I think it was 36-28 or something like that. And one thing I remembered was, as soon as we won, I just hit my knees and I just gave God the glory. And God had something special going on with these guys, and it was a close-knit bunch of guys that got behind, the coaches, Ken Sparks, and it, we started that national championship, and then the next year came back, and then we ended up, tying, and at Central Arkansas, still had the national championship, but one of those things that just, why me? Why was I there? And why did I meet Ken Sparks? And it was just a great, bigger plan of something that was going to happen in the lives of people's lives here at Carson-Newman, and people's changing lives, coming to know Christ, and through a game called football. That's what's so ridiculous, is that God will take something like this if we're available, and use it and give Him the glory. And we've got rings and all this stuff, but it's not about that. It's about tell the story. I know Coach Sparks, when he was talking about the ring, I think the first ring we had faith on the side of it. And he said, when people ask about it, tell them about the story. Tell them about being faithful, to your teammates and this or that, but also being faithful to your relationship with Christ. And that's what Ken Sparks was about. So.
Absolutely. And so, wrap up your playing career, collegiate career here. Did you stay close with Ken Sparks after graduation, and did you just come back a couple of times, kind of stay close with your teammates?
I did. I came back because they had the alumni game, and so I was going in the Canadian Football League. So my first year, I was there for 2 months or 3 months at Saskatchewan Rough Riders and got cut. Came back, and so I think I was working around here, and I was helping Carson-Newman some. And then I would play, in the alumni game, which was fun because I was trying to get into the Canadian League the next year. Yeah. So I was staying in shape, and again, just I wanted to be around what Coach Sparks was all about. I mean, so then I think the next year I ended up going to Toronto Argonauts and was there for a year. Came back and got cut again, and my career was over. And then I started working with FCA and in Nashville for about a couple of years there, and would still go back and would play games, which was crazy. But I think they ended up getting out of the NAIA to the NCAA, and they couldn't do the alumni stuff anymore, so we had to stop that. But I will probably still be playing. Some of those old guys like Torbush and Lingerfinter and Danny Sanders and all those guys, they would probably still be playing, maybe. I don't know. But it was a great opportunity to be a part, of Coach Sparks' legacy. We actually, I want to say in the 90s, I don't even for Aaron Safel, he was a running back here, and he and I we would go speak. I would speak and he would sing. Kind of salt and pepper. He was an African-American guy, so we, salt and pepper and black and white and ebony and ivory, I think we called each other. But we sat down with Coach Sparks one time at lunch and said, hey, we want another ring. And so I came up with this idea of team of the decade, mm-hmm. Team of the decade, or decade of champions is what we said. Well, we do a decade of champions. All those 5 rings. Let's do a decade of champions ring. I said I wanted to get another ring, and so he actually ended up turning that ring into the team of the century, and so I ended up getting that 3rd ring. With that, and I ended up having 3 sons, and they all played football and sports, and so it was interesting that I was able to give 3 rings to my son, and now we have 4, which Scott McClanahan and Mark Isom put together the 338 ring, which were all the wins that Ken Sparks had. Of all those rings, or all the wins. And all the players from 1980 to 2016 who played a part of his legacy is now they have the 338 ring, and which is just come out. I actually got it today, and I'm trying to. Thing's so heavy. It's like so different. It's interesting. So, but I don't have 4 children, so I'm just going to my granddaughter now. So. I think they're done with rings. I don't know. So.
That's awesome. Well, of course, you later on in life to go into the entertainment business later on in life and make the move up to New York City. What was kind of the pushing factor into getting into the entertainment business? Well,
working with FCA, I was the director in Upper East Tennessee from 1996 to 2002, and I was doing an extreme team, martial arts. At that time, Mortal Kombat was going on, and so I created a extreme team, is what we called it, and we used FCA. They had a drug-free program, and I would put together I was taking Taekwondo with my family and some other people, so I put together a team. And we would go to the schools, middle school, high school, and colleges about their no drug-free program, and talk about faith, commitment, and accountability. And so I directed it and produced it and spoke, and I got involved with a stuntman and doing some of the stunts that he was helping us doing some stuff like that, because I did all the actions and things like that, and theatrical explosions that we had, and, so I left FCA. I went through a divorce, and I was working for a medical company and got laid off. And I went to get my hair cut. and the guy that was doing my hair asked me, he said, "Have you ever done any acting or modeling?" I said, "No." I said, "Well, so what do you do?" So he said, this guy had been a hair and makeup guy for an agency. He said, well, he told me to go to this agency, and so I went to the Carolina Talent in Charlotte. It was an open call, and I was there doing a fake commercial, a runway kind of thing, and I was going back to my seat. I was the oldest guy there. I mean, most of it was a bunch of kids and and parents and things like that. And the agency told me, lady said, "Don't sit down." I said, "I want to tell you about this guy. This guy, because of my salt and pepper, gray hair, says this guy can be a doctor, a lawyer, detective, and he just kind of snapped. I said, hey, that's my brand. I can play different roles. But I've always, because of Ken Sparks, whatever your hand finds to do, you do it to your best ability and for God's glory." And I said, well, I'm going to get in the entertainment industry, and it's going to be a purpose-driven entertainment. I don't want to just do things just to do things. I want to do things to reach people for Christ. I took a course on Hollywood Institute on how to do films from zero budget all the way up to $20 million budget. And so I started doing some films. I actually directed and produced a couple of just micro budget films. And Facing the Giants movie came out. It's about a coach whose priorities weren't right, and he wasn't winning. All of a sudden, he was at a Christian coach, or he was at a Christian school, but some guy came in and talked to him about his priorities. He got his priorities right and started winning. I said, well, that's Ken Sparks, but his priorities are already right. Yeah. I said, I'm going to tell a story. I want to, about Ken Sparks. So in 2006, that's what kind of got into me about maybe doing his story or telling us, a feature film about like Facing the Giants. So fast forward, I worked in New York and had some success in commercials, and Tyler Perry made it Medea's Witness Protection. I was his boss, and so I like both sides of the camera. I like acting, commercials and things like that, but also I was like, man, what I want to produce stuff, I like that's what people do in the industry. You produce stuff, and it reminded me a lot like athletics. You get a coach, you get assistants, and you did this and that, and then you put together a team, and you have a good, successful team. You have a successful film. So I was an agent for 3 years in New York, and then moved to LA to be around my sons, and then I got remarried and moved to Orlando, and started doing, same thing. And then all of a sudden, my marriage fell apart. My wife had an affair. I ended up having a stroke and lost my memory and speech. And physicality, I was fine. I mean, I could exercise, but my speech and memory was impacted. Found out that I had a PFO, which is a patent femoral veil, which is a millimeter hole in the middle of your heart. And 1 out of 4 people have it. It's a birth defect. And so if you have an atrial fib, then you can push clots into your heart, who's supposed to be filtering it. And so it ended up having a clot. I had a stroke from it, a cryptogenic stroke, But it made me think about things, about life and another chance. So I moved back up to Knoxville, and I went to the Hall of Fame dinner for Farragut that Barry Mauser was going to be inducted to. So Mark Isom was there, Robert Arnett, Dwight Wilson. We're all there to support Barry Mauser. And I'd gone through a documentary course. I said, I think a documentary is something I'd like to be doing, telling a story and then do a feature film. So I talked to Robert Arnett, and I said, hey, let me do a documentary, Ken Sparks. And so let's go. That was February 2020, I believe, yeah. And so I found out that 3 years before they had tried to do something. Jimmy Seitz and some, I think, some other guys put together some footage, and it just didn't get off the ground. And I think they were going to work with FCA. So I talked to Dean Craig, and he said, yeah, they had done that. And so I went up and talked to Mr. Pope, athletic director, and found out that Keith McDaniel, who was the film professor at Carson-Newman, and we had a meeting. And they said, yeah, we just don't have time to do something like that right now. If you want to do something like that, we just want to make sure it's done right. And Keith McDaniel, who's done 20 or plus documentaries, and he does the Knoxville Film Festival. He asked me, he said, have you ever done a documentary? I said, no. I said, it's not rocket science, but I know you do a lot of interviews and things like that. But he says, well, you need to get some producers to help you. I said, well, I'll find that. I can do that, and I'll find the money because they didn't have the money. I said, I'll find the money, and so I found some guys that I had done a commercials with in Tampa, and they were behind the project, and COVID shut us down. And because I'd already got some money, some gifting, matching gifts from some alumni, Carson-Newman said, hey, we'll do it if you can find some other money. So all through the summer of COVID, I just started getting equipment through the stimulus that we had because I'm self-employed. So I ended up having stimulus. So I bought equipment, Sony A7R III, the Sony FX6, the lights and the audio equipment I had before, but just need to upgrade it. So in the middle, I was actually going to go to Los Angeles because my granddaughter and my oldest son, Jeffrey, and Justice lived in Los Angeles. So I thought I was going to go to LA. Yeah. But Jeffrey, the oldest one, said, no, we're getting out of California. It's getting crazy. We're leaving. So we're going to move to Nashville. Would you fly here and drive my car back, and we're all going to take 4 or 5 days, and we're going to camp all the way across the United States. So we did that around, I guess it was in August. And we stopped at my sister in Bowling Green, and we were taking another day and just taking our time, and my son's daughter-in-law, who's a director, writer, editor, she's an actress, she's putting some stuff out to Walmart and things like that, and DVDs. She said, let's shoot something. I said, well, here we go. It's ready to go. The Ken Sparks story, it's ready. And we started September 2020. We got the money. We got us started. Got the $25K with the matching gift, and we raised another, I think 20 or 25 or 30 or whatever. And we started interviewing people: Alan Duncan, Dean Craig, Kurt Duncan, Mark Isom, Jay Floyd, Ken Smith, Coach Clowney. We interviewed about 31 people, and we ended up kind of put it down to about 14 people because we just couldn't put everything in there.
Yeah.
But we've got access to use those interviews later. And we got Tony Dungy in there with a clip from talking about Coach Sparks, and so we ended in July of 2021, and we got it in the Knoxville Film Festival, and I submitted the documentary to 32 film festivals. Right now, we've got, I think, 14 we've been selected by film festivals, and we've had, I think, 11 awards.
Oh, wow.
So, I mean, it's really taken off. Tomorrow, we're going to the Tennessee Baptist Convention, and they are doing the Carson-Newman alumni dinner at the Tennessee Baptist Convention for all the people that graduated from Carson-Newman. And they are giving away the first award ever for the Ken Sparks Award that personifies. See, there's my brain. I gotta get my brain. It exemplifies the person, the pastor or the lay person that shows evangelism in their life, and they're giving that award to the Ken Sparks Award, and we're showing our trailer tomorrow night, and so that's kind of a great thing for the Tennessee Baptist Convention, because a lot of the churches were able to see about it, because we want to get this out to the churches, we want FCA to get it out, and so we're working with Regal and Phoenix Theaters for a theatrical release on January 7th. Of 2020. And then we have a meeting this week with PureFlix, which puts out God's Not Dead and all those, Kendrick's Brothers and like Show Me the Father and some other great Christian films, inspirational things. So they're very interested in the documentary. Plus, they know about we want to do the feature film called It Only Takes a Spark. So there's a lot of great things happening. God's really blessed. And honored our efforts, and we've kind of just tried to stay out of the way, and it's just happening, and so it's good. It's been good to be a part of it.
Well, of course, the documentary, it's gotten the awards, it's gotten all that, but more importantly, how important is it to you that other people know, not just in East Tennessee, but around the nation and the world, what Ken Sparks meant to all the people here at Carson-Newman, and what he meant to glorify God in everything he did?
Well, I went through they have, I think online, they have this thing, master class, I think, and so I went through, I think, the Ken Burns documentary class. And at the end, when he's finished with his film, he says, you want to evangelize that film. That means get it out there, And so the reason I think I wanted to put it in a lot of film festivals, I want people to see it. Secular ones, we have several faith-based film festivals that we're getting in. But there was one that stuck out, the Topanga Film Festival in California. I used to live close to there, and so did my son. We were selected, and it's a secular film festival, and we were the first ones to show that, and the owners of the film festival were impacted by it. They said, this is not about a football game, a football film. This is about changing people's lives. And one of the producers said, I'm writing down what Coach Sparks said about how's your heart, because that's what I need to be doing in people's lives, and not just asking how you doing. It's like, how's your heart doing? And we didn't win in that film festival. Song of the Whales won. So It's hard to compete against the whales. But that's secular, you know. I mean, so but we made an impact, and that's the spark that, you know, it's not about Ken Sparks. It's about the person that lives inside Ken Sparks that can come out and tell the world about what we're supposed to be about, the relationship of Jesus Christ. And that's what the documentary is about. Ken Sparks was just a vessel that God wants to use, and Ken Sparks made himself available. Same thing, we can make ourselves available, if we will, to be used, to have a spark in somebody's life. And that's what has been ingrained me by Ken Sparks since I've been around him. And that's the passion that's behind this documentary. It's like, it only takes a spark, you know. What can you do? So.
When you talk about, you showed it at Knoxville Film Festival, of course, getting to show it back in your hometown as well. A lot of alumni and supporters of Carson-Newman were there. What has the reaction been from the Carson-Newman family, that maybe they did know Ken Sparks, maybe even the ones that didn't know Ken Sparks? What has the reaction been from them seeing this film?
Well, what's interesting, which I loved about it, was I didn't know some of these guys' stories. I didn't know Ken Sparks' story, that he grew up poor, you know, because Chad told the story, and that he came to know Christ through young life. And he was a part of a gang when he grew up, and that you know, radically changed his life and his family. And so that's what's interesting, and why I want to do some more stories about people, telling people their stories, because everybody has a story, and then God can use that story in somebody's life. It may not be in yours or somebody else's, but somebody is going to make a difference in somebody's life. When we did the film at the Ken Sparks story at the Knoxville Film Festival, Keith got up and introduced the film. And it was funny because he said that he was a little leery of me doing the documentary. And which I understood that, and that was fine. But he said he wanted something that would personify, would tell the good stories about Carson-Newman and honor Ken Sparks. And he said, we did it. We did. And I have to give all the accolades to my son and my daughter-in-law, who put this story together. I mean, I was there, but they edited, they colorized it, they put the script, you know, for me to be able to talk about the story, and to take 31 people's lives and bring it down to about 14 people talking, and to tell a story. And that's the hardest thing, is have a good, you know, beginning and middle and an end, and they did that. And I'm so proud of my family that they were a part of it. Even my cousin Alan Duncan was a part of it, and it all of us were impacted by Ken Sparks, and the people that the lady that's working with us for our media, Check Yourself Marketing, Hallie Sprinkle, who used to be marketing for Regal for like 5 or 6 years. She's now has her own company, but she's helping us market. You know, our Facebook, social media, stuff like that. She was impacted. She never knew the stories that's behind Ken Sparks and all these other people. I mean, it really is to hear, you know, like the Ken Smiths and the Tony Dungy talking about that he met Ken Sparks at Black Mountain, and he patterned his life in coaching around Ken Sparks. I was dumbfounded that a guy like that, who had Super Bowls, you know, had made that kind of impact that Ken Sparks had. So, you know, the stories that keep coming out that, wow, you know, made an impact. So.
Of course, you talked about trying to start distributing the film, trying to get it online. For those who want to kind of keep up with the film and kind of distribution, get updates, I know you said you have a Facebook page. Was that probably the best way to kind of keep up to date and see what's going on with the documentary?
We have that Facebook page, which is the Ken Sparks story, I believe, or Sparks, the Ken Sparks story. They can look me up on Facebook because I have too many pages. I have Jeff Joslin, Joslin. That's my regular one, and I don't really add a lot of people because I'm out of numbers on that. But I have a producer's page, which I try to update with that in conjunction with the Ken Sparks page, and then my son and daughter-in-law, they have a website, nativewinmedia.com. And so one of the things we're doing too is we're creating an app. And a lot of people have watched Chosen from their app.
Yeah.
So we got that idea and said, hey, let's create our own app. Okay. And we can stream out when it's ready, the Ken Sparks story. It only takes a spark. Right now they're shooting, my daughter-in-law, they're shooting a I don't know what some kind of musical thing, because my son does music, so they're doing some kind of a Southern musical kind of thing for a feature film that they want to have content ready for that app. And then I've got a couple of feature films that we're doing. I want to tell about the Brushy Mountain, the Red Fuller story, and then we have another one called Rude Awakening. Great father it's going to be coming out through our app and content and stuff like that. So nativewinmedia.com, and then just Facebook's probably the best way, because we're going to have an event for the Regal. We're going to have probably a red carpet thing on January 7th at the Regal Pinnacle. As soon as the details come out with that, and that'll be happening probably in the next week or so.
Sounds good. Well, Jeff, thank you so much for joining us. Of course, we're going to have to talk to Coach Clowney about getting that alumni game back together, see if he can throw around the old Pigskin a little bit again out here in Berktar Stadium. Yeah,
he's getting a interesting year for Carson-Newman. It's kind of like, look, you just it's tough in this day of time, and that to have guys to be faithful in bad circumstances, So it's been a while since Carson-Newman has been in that kind of situation, and there's a great way that God can use. When I actually showed the film for the football team, and Coach Clowney was telling me, saying, we're trying to find ourselves, and that's, I think Coach Sparks talked about, in the documentary, talks about, tackle is tackling and, football is football, but truth always stays the same. And if people will stay faithful to the truth, then good things can happen, as long as they give them the glory. If you try to take it yourself, then things just aren't going to work out. It's, 500 years from now, who's going to care that Carson-Newman went 1-9? This building's not going to be here, probably. I wouldn't think. The only thing that's going to happen is all of us, you and I, are going to be in eternity, someplace. And so, wouldn't it be terrible that you put all your eggs in the basket of life here, and you forget about your eternity? And that's what it's about. It's about eternity, and about in a relationship with Christ, and coming to know Christ as soon as possible, because you never know. I could be gone with the stroke. I could have been gone. You never know. Going home today, I could be gone. And you're never. Your life is like a vapor. It's gone. And the only thing that's going to last is your relationship with Christ.
So Jeff, thank you once again for joining us today, and best of luck with the film. And, of course, if you want to keep up, follow on Facebook, follow all the pages, and just keep up with the release. And once again, thank you so much for taking time today.
Yeah, Richard, great. I appreciate it, and appreciate the honor to do something for what Ken Sparks did in my life. So.
That was Jeff Joslin, and he joined us this week on Mossy Creek Conversations. You can keep up, of course, with the film via Facebook with Sparks, the Ken Sparks story, and, of course, keep up everything going on at Carson-Newman University at seeandeagles.com. Thank you all for watching and listening to this week's Mossy Creek Conversations.
He said, it's more important for us to win souls for Jesus Christ than it is to win football games.
This generation, coaches are the missionaries.
He was a warrior. That's what he was.
I'm watching all these guys who were my heroes on the football playing field cry and talk about Jesus.
It's amazing where God will step in to do His will. And He's using a game called football to change people's lives.
There are thousands and thousands of guys all across the world, just like me, who are directly impacted by Ken Sparks.
The light shines in the darkness, and it's Christ in us, and He is what Ken would tell you made all the difference.